Okay. We are one of 17 or 18, I believe it's 18 counting us, ONC counties in Oregon. So that's half of your 36 counties in Oregon. So there's a lot of ONC counties in the state of Oregon. And like those other counties, we have long depended on the ONC lands for revenue for decades, going all the way back to, post-World War II. Basically, those revenues, particularly starting in the 50s when the logging actually really started on those lands, those revenues are what have paid for many of our county services. And that's been going on for decades until the mid-90s. In the mid-90s, federal legislation began to affect timber sales on the ONC lands. Timber, was becoming less and less or harder to get to as the easy timber was harvested. And so, given all those ingredients, timber receipts began to dissipate very quickly with a couple of court decisions that came from the federal court. So the federal government quickly stepped in the mid-90s with an in lieu of payment, basically what we call the federal county payments, in lieu of those ONC timber receipts that weren't coming in anymore. And it was actually a pretty good deal. They actually gave us an average of our 3 highest years in the 80s there, when things were at a height, and that's what they set the county payments on. We did well with that legislation, and that's what we've been living on since. That went for approximately 8 years, and then we got, of course, another extension here last year. So it all began about the mid-90s. They did a major bill in the late 90s. I think it was 99 was the first year it came through. That went through 06. They extended another year through 07, 08. And here we are. This year, this fiscal year, we don't have, it looks like we're not going to have any federal county payments. That's been 2/3 of our general fund. Our general fund is the fund that we do have discretion over. Those are funds that the county commissioners can say, this is what we're going to do with the money. The rest of our dollars, most of the dollars that come through the county are from the state and federal government, and they're restricted to services. For instance, Public Works, it's a lot of gas tax money. And gas taxes can only be spent on the transportation system that uses that gas. So the idea is you take those funds and they're dedicated to different services and projects. So the general fund is our discretionary. That's where most of the funds for our criminal justice system, our public safety system, comes from. Our DA, that's a county program. The deputy DAs are all paid by the county. Our juvenile justice system, both our detention and our detention shelter, both of those facilities are paid for through general fund. Some of the money does come from the state, but the lion's share comes from general fund. And then, of course, the big one is the sheriff's office. Most of his dollars comes from our general fund. So we've been long dependent on that federal dollars. It's disappearing now. It's 2/3 of our general fund. As I think I said yesterday in front of the city council, there are typically two situations that lead to government coming to you as citizens for more dollars. I think the number one is the cost of providing you that service is outstripping the revenue growth. And so, we need to, should I stop? Or?
Yeah. Let's, what were we on? We were on quality of life.
ONC, I was getting into the ONC and I was just getting into, this is why we've been where we are. Mm-hmm. This is where we're at now. And the reason that government typically comes to you for taxes is for 2 reasons. One is the cost of doing business has outstripped the revenue. Mm-hmm. So we need some more revenue. That's a very typical reason. And the other is you need some new programs, some expanded programs, some new services, so we need the dollars to pay for that. In terms of operations, levies, or taxes that support operations, 99.9% of the time, that's why government comes to you. And of course, those reasons are always very debatable, and they should be. Often, if government isn't living within their means, people need to say, well, I can't afford any more taxes. But this situation is unique. This situation is one where 2/3 of our general fund is disappearing. It's coming from a source that has completely dried up. It's gone. Poof, it disappeared. It's a very unique situation. I think one of our challenges, Ron, in reaching out to citizens and talking about this issue is making that distinction from them. Because what I hear a lot from people is the response, they're responding to what they're used to hearing. They're hearing, oh, the government wants money again. And they're figuring it's for the reasons that it usually is. And I can understand that. This is a very unique situation. We have 2/3 of our dollars, over $12 million from our general fund, that's just disappeared. It's gone. And we need to try to fill that hole. And that's what our challenge really is.
What's going to happen to public safety?
Well, public safety gets the lion's share of that general fund. And without this $12+ million, we're just simply not going to have much of a public safety system. I mean, we'll still have a sheriff. The sheriff can go out and patrol on his own, but that'll be it. There'll be virtually no patrol. There'll be very little prosecution that'll be able to be done. We'll still be able to get the most egregious, most violent felonies. We'll still have, a couple of deputy prosecutors to prosecute those kind of crimes. So it won't be a complete zero out on the criminal justice system, but it'll be very close. It'll be something unprecedented, something that you don't see in the US of A in the 21st century.